the fabrication of religious stories and their lasting impact. Religious texts, particularly those foundational to the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, carry immense influence over billions of people. However, their content and origins have long been a source of heated debate. Central to these discussions is whether holy texts, which are intended to inspire faith and unity, should include stories that portray one group of people negatively to elevate another. Such narratives, critics argue, undermine the purpose of these texts as moral and spiritual guides and perpetuate division rather than unity. The creation and fabrication of stories, particularly the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, or the 5 books of Moses, have laid the foundation for contentious relationships among the Abrahamic faiths. One of the most debated narratives is the Exodus, a fabricated story presented as a defining moment of liberation. This tale accuses ancient Egyptian Africans of enslaving the Hebrews, despite earlier accounts of the ancient Egyptians offering them sanctuary during a time of famine. According to the Bible, the Hebrews pleaded with their God for deliverance from this supposed oppression and their African oppressors, culminating in their journey to the Promised Land. This narrative is central to the theological and cultural identity of the Abrahamic religions. Yet, many view it as a fabrication that not only misrepresents historical events, but also perpetuates harmful stereotypes about ancient Egyptian Africans. For believers, the fabricated story of Exodus is a testament to God's faithfulness, justice, and power to deliver His chosen people. It symbolizes hope, liberation, and fulfillment under false pretense of divine promises. However, the narrative's implications extend beyond its religious significance, painting ancient Egyptians as oppressors devoid of justice or mercy. Such portrayals have fueled stereotypes that dehumanize ancient Egyptian Africans, reducing their rich cultural and historical contributions to the distortion of villainy. The narrative has also been used to justify discrimination and marginalization, echoing a troubling topic that elevates one group's divine favor at the expense of another's humanity. The Exodus story raises profound ethical questions about the nature of the Abrahamic God. If all humans are created equal by the same God, why does God appear to favor one group over others, to the extent of subjecting an entire civilization to divine wrath? The 10 plagues and other dramatic events described in the Bible are framed as acts of divine justice, but they also suggest a God willing to inflict suffering indiscriminately. Furthermore, the depiction of God actively wrestling and intervening to secure land and resources for a chosen people has politicized religious texts. These stories have justified territorial claims, wars, and the displacement of communities, creating lasting divisions among nations, families, and races. Critics argue that the fabricated stories in the Bible serve not just spiritual purposes, but also political and social agendas. By portraying the Hebrews as divinely chosen and framing their history as one that required God intervention, the texts reinforce the superiority of one group over others. The Exodus, along with other biblical narratives, has been instrumental in shaping perceptions of identity, land ownership, and moral authority, often at the expense of truth and inclusivity. The exclusivist tendencies in the narratives of the Abrahamic religions are not unique. They find parallels in other faith traditions, such as Hinduism and Buddhism. These stories have often contributed to systems of oppression and inequality, justifying the subjugation of certain groups based on divine will. The fabricated stories in a Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, or the 5 books of Moses, including the Exodus, have not only distorted historical realities but have also perpetuated divisive ideologies. They reflect a troubling legacy where religious texts have been weaponized to legitimize inequality and dominance. Tracing the origins and implications of the Promised Land narrative. Understanding the origins and implications of religious narratives is essential for fostering inclusivity and reconciliation. Among the most enduring and contentious of these stories is that of the Hebrews and the Promised Land, as described in the Exodus account. In a world with a population of over 7 billion, the question arises, who were these Hebrews and why? After millennia, are they still engaged in struggles over a land promised by God? Meanwhile, nations and cultures outside the Abrahamic tradition have secured their lands and resources through different narratives, often attributed to their pagan gods. These stories, though lacking the divine favoritism central to Abrahamic religions, have allowed them to establish their identities without the contentious implications of promised lands or chosen peoples. The Promised Land narrative is deeply rooted in Abrahamic religions, particularly Christianity and Judaism. It is tied to the concept of divine selection, portraying the Hebrews as God's chosen people. However, this narrative has faced scrutiny for its historical inaccuracy and moral implications. Many critics have argued that these stories, including those of Genesis, Abraham, and the Exodus, are fabrications designed to serve theological and political purposes. The promise of a land is one of the oldest practices in religious history, often equated with a spiritual goal in heaven. This belief, while rooted in ancient folk tales, owes much of its preservation and propagation to the writings of ancient Egyptian Africans. Their culture, which included intricate beliefs in the afterlife, was the foundation for the development of Christianity and Christian theology. Christianity's claim to being the oldest religion is not based on archaeological, historical, or oral traditions alone, but also on its deep connection to ancient Egyptian civilization. The achievements of this civilization, such as the construction of the Great Pyramids, serve as a benchmark for assessing the validity of claims about the age and authenticity of religious traditions. The descendants of the pyramid builders played a crucial role in shaping Christianity, transforming it into a unifying religion for the Roman Empire in the 4th century. The belief in an afterlife central to Christianity was preserved and codified by these Africans, who introduced it into Christian theology through their advanced understanding of the spiritual and material worlds. The role of the Roman Empire and the Age of Reformation. Christianity's evolution as a dominant religion owes much to the Roman Empire. The construction of the Hagia Sophia, the first Christian church, symbolized the religion's establishment. However, the fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Empire in 1453 marked a turning point. The loss of this spiritual center led many Christians to question the authority of the Pope and the Catholic Church, sparking the Protestant Reformation. This period of religious upheaval saw Catholic Christians, particularly in the Holy Roman Empire of Germany, challenging the centralized control of the Church. Leveraging their education and access to printing technology, these reformers compiled and distributed the first printed Bible, known as the Gutenberg Bible, in the 1450s. The compilation of the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, or the 5 books of Moses, provided an opportunity for the reformers to reinterpret traditional Christian stories like the promise of heaven for believers, which Christianity presents as a metaphor. A reward for the faithful became a physical territory for the Hebrews. These reinterpretations reinforced the idea of divine favoritism, portraying the Hebrews as uniquely deserving of God's blessings. However, critics argue that this narrative was a tool for asserting dominance, both spiritually and politically. By framing the promise of heaven as a divine allocation of land, the reformers created a powerful symbol of religious and territorial entitlement. Re-examining religious narratives and reconciliation. In an era of historical revisionism, supported by advances in archaeology and science, it is crucial to critically examine the origins of religious stories. The Promised Land story, along with other foundational tales of the Abrahamic religions, while deeply symbolic, carries a legacy of division and exclusion. Reimagining its message as one of universal inclusion and spiritual unity offers a path toward reconciliation. The influence of ancient Egyptian civilization on Christian theology underscores the interconnectedness of human history. By recognizing these historical connections and critically examining fabricated stories in the holy books of the 3 Abrahamic religions, such as the claims about the existence of Jews, Hebrews, or Israelites before the 16th century AD, or before the creation of the oldest religion, Christianity, and the fraudulent claim by their God that the ancient Egyptian Africans enslaved his chosen people, the Jews, we can promote a more inclusive understanding of religion, one that seeks to unite rather than divide. The Jews, Hebrews, or Israelites were European Christian separatists, like the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses group, whose actions significantly reshaped the history and direction of the Abrahamic religions as we know them today.